All right, everyone. My clock shows 7. There are already 11 people here. I think we can get going already. People will come right in later. All right. So thank you guys for joining to another edition of our software architecture meetup. Today, as you guys know, is about the roadmap to software engineering and computer science education. I'd suggest we jump right in. So first and foremost, let me give a primer to why the topic, right? Because it doesn't sound like a topic that would particularly fit in a software architecture group. But as software architects, we don't only scribble in Draw.io or PowerPoint or your tool of choice. The important part is also the communication, of course, right? And also having a team structure that works, building a team structure that works, and maintaining a team structure that works, right? Because if it weren't for maintenance, then, well, the projects would only need us in the first 2 weeks, and then we could go already, right? And we basically have no work. So today we kind of aim to look a bit into team structures, into knowledge backgrounds, into roadmaps, well, to software engineering, and kind of get a better understanding of how to build teams, how to construct teams that work well together, that have knowledge backgrounds, where the individuals have knowledge backgrounds that fit together nicely, and that can be the most productive, right? So for that purpose, we have invited quite a few people with very interesting backgrounds, with wildly different approaches to their career in IT and in computer science. And I say we jump right in to the introduction. I think, Bernhard, could you start?
Of course, first of all, thanks a lot for having me. It's a pleasure. And so with the introduction, my name is Bernhard Böck. I'm currently 19 years old, and I'm attending the HDL Spengergasse in Vienna, which is a vocational school in Vienna. Moreover, I'm currently a software engineer at Frankstahl, and I'm a machine learning intern at a New York hedge fund. And
all right,
yeah, that's my story.
Cool. So next up, Matthias Walk.
Hi, my name is Matthias Walk. I attended HTL Spengergasse and graduated last year. I work at IBM as an associate software developer, and my customer at IBM is the BME, and there is where I really work.
Matthias Höld.
Yes, hello, thanks for having me. My name is Matthias. I am technical architect at Accenture. I'm one of those people with a very unusual background. I studied physics and then went into software engineering. And I'm now one of the technology architects within Accenture, and yeah, happy to be here.
Cool. Ari?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm a real teacher at the Higher Technical College of Spengergasse. There I'm responsible for the high potential program as well as the business relations. And of course, I've got a real job as well, which is a consultant and counselor in the IT sector, of course. And there I work mainly in resource acquisition and compliance management.
And Jürgen?
Thanks for having me. My name is Jürgen. I'm a managing director at Accenture, working since 14 years in the IT sector. I also was studying at the HTL in Vorarlberg, the first Betriebsinformatik HTL, which was established, one of the first. Studied in Graz information science or information management. And now I'm working on large-scale delivery project, mainly custom built, but also in the past data warehouse large-scale transformation programs. Happy to be here and looking forward for the discussion.
Thanks, guys. So then we have our audience service member for today.
Hi everyone, my name is Kathrin. I am also a software developer at Accenture, and today I will do audience service for you. So if you have any questions about the things that are being talked about or some related topics, please post them in the chat and I will give them to our speakers.
And of course, as you guys might have noticed, the moderator looks different this time around. We switched things up a bit. I'll be your moderator for this discussion. I also work at Accenture. So I think we can actually jump right into the first question. I'll blend that one right in. So we just heard you guys have all wildly different careers and educational roads behind you. And we kind of wanted to know if you guys think that to any of your careers, to any other career, if there are certain advantages, disadvantages, if there are things that, for instance, a higher technical college graduate can do that a CS grad can't do, and vice versa, or things that self-taught programmers or career changers, where they can't really keep up. So I think who wants to start?
I can start if you... No,
go on.
Please. Okay, because the higher technical college was mentioned first, I thought I'd just start. So I think that's a very special thing we have here in Austria with the higher technical college. A lot of countries don't have, and there are a lot of advantages we have here. And I think in English it's called vocational school, and I think that name already implies what it's for, and it's for educating students to then practice some job in that area and be educated well enough for doing that. And I think that's a cool aspect. And of course, an advantage of a high technical college is that it's very practice focused. So you have a lot of theory, that's just a rumor, but really the most important aspect of a higher technical college is that you are good in practice, that you know what to do when you get an assignment, for example, and you know how to implement it. And I think that's trained well, and that's a very positive aspect of a higher technical college. And I have a few more, so if someone wants to interrupt and give his opinion, or I can just listen out.
Maybe I can add to that, yeah, because I fully agree with your point, and being coming from HTL myself, and I also recognized how envious other countries are that we have these kind of specific technical oriented A-level school, so to say, which basically is missing in the context for other countries. And if you want to say what is the difference regarding HTL and the computer science graduate, I mean, of course, the thing is that you receive, depending if you're doing the masters, the bachelor, the masters, or in the ancient times, a diploma engineer. Of course, you have 3, 4, or 5 years more of education. But I would say, in a way, I would frame it in a way like in the HTL, you catch the fire for technology. You really start burning for the topic. And on the university, you learn to control it in a way, yeah, because you get a little bit of bigger perspective on things and a little bit more theory and design patterns and also the business value and the economic length on it. This is also part of in the HTL, of course, but you just get a little, let's say, a little bit a broader picture because you have more time taking care of the topics which surround the technology as such.
Mm-hmm. So to throw something right in, a bit pointed, but still, in my experience, there is a certain kind of, well, arrogance is very negatively connotated. But a certain kind of entitlement that some technical college graduates have with them, that comes with being a unique factor not only in the ASG market but also in the European market. Do you think that that they have the kind of certain skill and abilities to justify this? Not only in Austria, but moreover in Europe or in the ASG market.
May I?
Oh,
yes, of course.
Okay. First of all, we shouldn't mix up a university degree and a degree from a technical college. There's a standard from the European Union, which is called European Qualification Level. There, a graduate from a higher technical college in Austria is at level 6, which is the same level as a bachelor's degree. So therefore, both types of educations might be closer together than we think. And maybe I can speak from experience here. I graduated a higher technical college. After that, I studied informatics at the Technical University. And I also taught at both institutions, Technical University and Spengergasse. And to be totally honest, I did not become a better software engineer at university, but I obtained a wider scope. So you learn a lot about things which do not make you a better software engineer directly, but you gain a lot of experience in corresponding adjacent fields which widen your perspective. But just from a development operative standpoint, higher technical colleges are great. And because you have got the practical experience, I did not code a single full-scale industry-grade project at university, but I did so at the higher technical college.
Mm-hmm. Matthias, you wanted to say something before that?
Yeah, I would probably add that it's useful to look at the point in time of the career of the individual, even either the HTL absolvent,
grad.
I forgot, graduate or the university graduate, because what the HTL graduate loses in education time, he gains in experience in relation to the university graduate.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that really matters? Is there a cost of opportunity here when you consider those 3 years of time it takes to do the bachelor's degree, or in reality even 2 years if you consider that a higher technical college takes 5 versus the 4 years of a grammar school? Do you consider those 2 years that you have kind of an advantage over people who did a grammar school and then did a bachelor's degree in computer science? Is it still an advantage you have over those two people, over those 2 years, or is it really a cost of opportunity when you consider that you don't have a degree afterwards, or you have a degree but you don't have a Bologna degree?
I would like to answer that. I think you have that 1 year difference concerning a grammar school and a higher technical college. And but with those 5 years of higher technical college, you have the opportunity to actually have a very, very broad and detailed look into a specific field, which you wouldn't have with a grammar school. So if you decide after those 5 years that IT is nothing for you, then you still have everything open. You could get a doctor or everything. And I think those 5 years, if you, with age of 14, you think that it might interest you, then you should do it, because then you get a very, very detailed look at it. And then you can further decide whether it's something for life or not. And that's, I think that 1 year more, it's worth it, definitely. If there is only a little piece of interest, you really should try it, because then you have a very, very broad knowledge about it, and then you can further decide whether it's something for life or not. That you can't do with a grammar school. If you finish grammar school, then you think you're interested in IT, then you start university, and after 3 years you notice that's nothing for you. You've kind of wasted 3 years of your life, isn't it? Not wasted, but it's kind of more time consuming than 1 year more in grammar school.
If I understood the question correctly, I think you meant kind of the opportunity cost of going to university for a bachelor's degree instead of working after school. So experience gained within those 3 years versus bachelor's obtained, right? Did I understand it? Yeah. So from my perspective, it really depends on the individual. It depends on what you want to do with your career. From my experience, what I saw also during studies, when I studied physics, people from various backgrounds have different ways of solving problems. And basically everything you do in IT is solving some problem. And what I also saw in now my professional career, that people from different backgrounds have the same way of differently going for a problem. And as a generalization, it's of course not true for everyone, but a bachelor's degree or even a master's degree, and even more so a doctor's degree, usually pushes people to get a broader perspective on this. Like Harald said before, this you have to be aware of other stuff when you go for a university degree, and that's also how you approach problems. You know, it's instead of I have this task and I solve this task, it's like, okay, what is the bigger context of this task, and what does it mean? What is the broader context? And usually, if you're like that kind of person that wants to have the bigger look, that wants to solve the problems on an even broader scale, then usually, of course, it's a blatant generalization, but usually it's better to obtain kind of forms of higher education where you're forced to kind of look over the horizon. Whereas if you really want to stick with your technology and really do hands-on technical work all the time, I guess the work experience is a better investment time-wise.
I really like Harald put it. It's really true. Like, you know, regarding, I didn't get a better software developer because I go to university, but you really put it very nicely, saying the adjacent areas, and Matthias put it in a broader perspective, the adjacent areas like economics and the other science stuff, and you know, like behavioral sciences or organizational stuff. So the broader perspective is, I think, the real thing. And if you learn a design pattern now in university or not, it doesn't really matter if you're really a better software developer. I think this is really a good point. You just like broaden the horizon and look a little bit further and get a little bit a more complete picture. Not particularly influencing, maybe yes, but not necessarily influencing the quality or the know-how on a technical scale. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Before we get to our first audience question, I'd like to address the second part of the question, actually, which is about self-taught and career changes. So Matthias, I do consider you, as someone who studied physics, I do consider you sort of a career changer. And as a valued colleague, I do consider you a very skilled software developer and architect. As far as holding, like keeping up goes, what were your challenges? What difficulties did you have? Did you feel in the beginning that keeping up with people who graduated university or a higher technical college was more difficult? How did you view that?
So first of all, thanks, feel honored. Second of all, I have to add also that I'm one of the few people, I think also one of the few people in our company that did not go to a HTL. I went to a simple gymnasium, you know, like the technical path really came to me very late in my life. So I don't even have the background of this school as well. I had a general interest in computer science and programming from an early age, but I wasn't properly taught anything. Basically, I had to teach everything myself. And yeah, so this was exactly the challenge. So from going from I have a Java book at home that teaches me how to write a public class main, you know, to I'm now in an enterprise context, and I have a lot of factory classes that don't really do anything. And where the hell is my business logic? So this was kind of a culture shock for me. I have to say though, I don't want to make it to be, you know, to make a lot of advertisement for a company, but I participated in this 2 months trainee program we call the Jumpstart, where we do have some kind of very condensed introduction into programming, and this really helped me a lot. So coming from, you know, this physics background with some knowledge of IT and object-oriented programming, but this Jumpstart program really gave me a perspective in, okay, what are the basic terms? What do I have to Google for? Because basically, in 2 months you can't teach what people learn in 5 years at the HTL, and just what to look out for. And basically, in a company like ours, and we have a lot of colleagues. People also teach you stuff. And for me, it was just like I know what my shortcomings were. I really learned with every sentence that anyone spoke to me, just because I thought there was so much valuable information for it. And it was a struggle in the beginning, but I was surrounded by by a lot of talented people that really helped me also to look for the right things. And I think I mean, I guess all of you know this 10,000 hour rule. So you have to be, if you want to become an expert in anything, you have to do it at least 10,000 hours long. But there's an addition to that. You have to do it in a particular way. So just writing "Hello World" all over again for 10,000 hours doesn't make you a better programmer. But as Jürgen said, understanding software patterns or understanding the business value of something, yeah, is as important as understanding how factory classes work. So basically, learning by doing, listening to people who really know what they're doing, and just for me, it was just trying to be better every day, and this is still my mantra.
Mm-hmm. All right. So before we come to our second block, let's just get to the first audience question from Simon. So to the panel, and I think good idea for Matthias Walk and Tari to answer. Do you believe that any graduate, academic or higher technical college brings business benefit to their employer in the first year after graduation? So immediate business benefit. Does someone have an idea about that? Harry?
If I may?
Yes.
I would even say earlier than that. We've got plenty of students who already signed consulting contracts, side jobs next to school, who bring actual business value to the companies. They make a lot of money, even more than their teachers, with part-time jobs. And if that wouldn't be the fact that they wouldn't bring any business value, companies wouldn't go for our young talents. Of course, that doesn't apply to everyone. Just some students sit just in school and wait until 5 years are over. You've got that in every school, but especially in my school, I would say the majority is capable of supplying real business value to a company even before they graduate. And therefore, of course, in the first year after graduation. I'm 100% sure, yes.
Fully agree.
Matthias Walk, you had something to say to that?
Yeah, I basically wanted to say the exact same thing as Harald. Not as eloquently, of course, but but yeah, I definitely do agree that they can, and the majority do bring business value even before the first year.
Mm-hmm. While, if I may add or comment on that, and get a reaction from you guys, well, yes, there are definitely some people that can bring business value from a higher technical college before graduation. Most would be considered raw diamonds at best. So the general consensus is that these people need to be shaped in a certain way, need to be made client-friendly. So while, yes, there are some people that in fourth year of higher technical college, you can put into a client's office and just let them work. Some people can't, and I'd like to kind of shift the focus a bit to those people with who are raw diamonds, and kind of reform the question whether or not they can bring actual business value in their first year after graduation, kind of while being formed, while being made into, well, an employee.
Maybe I can put a thought on that. I mean, raw diamond. I mean, everybody starts at some point in time at a client, and so as if you want, or at a company, everybody is a raw diamond in the first place, because of course you need to understand the rules and the implicit rules, maybe even the communication structure of the company. It doesn't matter if it's now consulting or any other industry client, doesn't really matter. You need to learn to swim in the context in which you are. And if you are a graduate from a economic focused school, so to say, you also need to learn let's say, how to do it in practice, your balance sheet and your, all the stuff. It's the same in the technology area. So I wouldn't, it doesn't even, let's say, it's not in opposite of what we said before. The business value is definitely there from probably day one or even earlier, when they are doing the internships parallel to the school. So of course, with everybody who is fresh in the market, they need to understand how to communicate with the client and even with your peers. This is nothing new. This is nothing different. Like for everybody, from a graduate from university, it's the same basically. Yeah.
Yeah, if I may add to that, again, what Harald said before is really hitting the nail on the head. It really depends on the type of people, because I saw people that came with a PhD and 100 certifications for all the cloud providers and everything, and they were just not used to work, and they were not, they had the best education, and even after 5 years, because also some people just don't fit in this kind of setup in be it consulting or a just normal IT job. Everyone has to find their niche, but it really depends on the person. If they are willing to put in the work and becoming the not diamond in the rough, but kind of the diamond within and start to shine. It really depends on the people, I would say.
All right. Anyone wants to add to that, or could we move on to onto our second topic? Cool. So, second topic. In how far do you guys deem it classical? And with classical, I mean the kind of roadmap or educational road that you see ever so often, i.e. grammar school, university degree, internship, jobs. In how far do you guys deem this road or this way of kind of getting to a computer science job or an IT job necessary? In how far does it benefit certain people or maybe disadvantage some people?
If I may start again with coming from a vastly different background, as always, and this is my favorite answer as a physicist, is it depends, because it highly depends on what you want to do and where you want to go. If I guess if you want to work at Google, there is a classic path. There is they have like specific interview questions for their development roles, and I guess you cannot get to this level by not being in this road for a very long time. But I would say it is possible that if you want to change lanes, so to say, if you want to go into IT and you have this kind of interest in it, or I mean, you can swap out IT by basically anything, if you have a passion for something and you put in the time and you put in the work, and as I said, what questions to ask and where to look, you can transition into it. Also, I mean, I've only seen consulting companies like ours where the usual road is you start as a developer and you transition into kind of a management role. The higher you get, the more it is about people management. It's good to have a technical understanding at some level, but there are certain people in our company that are so far away from any real application of IT stuff. They don't know anymore what a factory method is, to go to my last example, but they still manage an IT project just because they know what is needed and how to manage the people. And at some point, the people management is more important. But yeah, if you want to be the hardcore programmer and really want to start early and want to become a niche skill kind of person, then of course the classical road is what suits you best, I guess.
So you kind of mentioned soft skills. Do you think that there are certain paths of education that lack these soft skills, that are better to gain these, or that should be pursued if you already have a kind of a knack for being a people's person, for instance?
I guess that question is hard to answer without blatantly generalizing anything. I could say most of my friends that went to HTL were less socially outgoing than people who went into my school, but that would just be a very biased answer. Again, I'm a very people-centric person, so I would say it highly depends on the person. Of course, it depends. I really think it's not the education part that teaches you the soft skills, but what you do outside of it. So it really depends if you go into a football club, for instance, or if you, I don't know, are a dancer. Everything, every activity teaches you something different. And this is the place where you get the soft skills that you need for later education. There's no schools are hard, and the social aspect in schools is different in every classroom. So I wouldn't try to generalize this in terms of education, but rather on what people do outside of their education.
All right. Does anyone else want to add to that?
It's a person topic, yeah, really. It's like, as said, as Matthias said, in the HTL, of course, you have the all-nighters where you like play Counter-Strike back in the days, even, and you don't like to socialize outside somehow, but there are also the people who indeed do that, yeah, and it doesn't matter from, I think also in the gymnasium, yeah, there will be people who are more introverted, yeah, and people who are more outgoing. It's probably also some kind of bias that just because you work with technology, you are more introvert kind of guy, yeah, or girl, or let's say some student. So this is really a specific, and it's also difficult. I'm not sure if you can really learn social skills. You can probably tend to go in a certain direction and be more, let's say, more specific, looking for this strength or this weakness, maybe, if you want, but it's kind of not like you learn a social skill in a particular way. This is something life teaches you, and your personality is more prone to go into this direction or not. If you like to be the rock star on the big stage, or if you like more the backstage guy and like to pull the cables, for example, which is evenly important, because otherwise the rock star couldn't stay on the big stage because nothing would work. Yeah, like, and some people feel more comfortable doing this in the backside, and this is perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm. So, as far as soft skill goes, I kind of want to point the question into direction of Harry, as you teach social and personal competence, SOPK, in the higher technical college. I kind of wanted to get an answer from you whether you deem HTL, for instance, being a place for soft skills, or a place where soft skills can be acquired.
Yes, indeed, it is possible. That's one of our priorities, actually, in the higher terms. So we teach our students how to manage teams, of course, how to give presentations, how to basically identify certain aspects in conversations, how to negotiate, some basics of psychology, some self-reflection. So I think that's very important. And but it's not something you learn from the book. It's something you refine based on experience. And I think the best approach to transport that knowledge, to train those skills, is to create an environment, create scenarios where the students are allowed to make mistakes. One of the most important aspects of formal education is the environment you're able to supply, where it doesn't have an economical impact if students do wrong, where they are allowed to try out certain things, and not just trying out a new programming language. It's way more than that. And that's very important to me when it comes to teaching, to guide the students. And I think the times we see today in formal education are vastly different to the times most of us, or we older folks, have witnessed in our education. So there's a lot of progress, and I actually enjoy being part of it. So yeah, of course, it's, especially to me, it's a big focus on the social skills.
All right. So if nothing wants to add to that, I think we can close topic 2 with a solid "it depends," and move on to the next one, which actually ties very neatly into what Harry just said. So, not only focused on the higher graduates of higher technical colleges, moreover, actually on everyone. Are there skills you can only acquire from one road of education? Do HTL grads or self-taught or career changers lack any theoretical skills that are really crucial, that can't be acquired through any other means. I mean, besides from learning on the job, of course. Be it practical or theoretical. So, for instance, a CS grad might have a better look into how the inner workings of technology X works, right? While a HTL student might be more inept with actually using and developing in a specific programming language. So I kind of just want to throw that question out there. Yeah, Matthias?
What I would say is that if those problems exist, I haven't encountered them yet. However, I have a lot of friends who study at the Technical University, software engineering, and comparing our curriculums to each other, HTL Spengasse and TU Wien, I have to say that the first couple of semesters are really similar to our education, besides some advanced math. So, yeah.
I would also like to comment on that. I think that's a rumor I've heard before I have even attended HTL, and it's the rumor of not having enough theory in a higher technical college, and it has. I was proven very wrong here. So you learn a lot of theory, probably not as focused as it is on a university, because that's just the aspect of a university. But you still have a lot of theory. You have to understand what you're actually doing when you are doing it. You can hardly be a good programmer when you're not really understanding what you're doing. So you are getting a lot of theoretical knowledge in a higher technical college, not only in software engineering, but in networking and databases in a lot of fields. So I don't think that for a normal day-to-day job, that if you graduate a higher technical college, that you would necessarily lack any theoretical skills. Of course, in general, there are probably a few people who may lack theoretical knowledge, but I think the general graduate would be pretty good at theoretical estimations.
Mm-hmm. So to give a specific example, I don't know if any of you know Max Howell. He's the creator of Homebrew. So I don't know if you've ever used that command for macOS. He's the guy who wrote the basically the package manager for macOS, and Google wouldn't hire him because he wasn't able to invert a binary tree on a whiteboard, right? So to come back to that, to come back to the notion of there are certain things that you just need to have, or that you need to pursue a specific road of education to be a good employee. To kind of like focus not only on that particular example, but on a kind of as a case study. What are your impressions on that?
If I may pick up what you just exactly said, because I saw the answer that he gave on Quora on this topic. Mm-hmm. It's again, for me, I'm sorry I have to do this again, but for me it's again a people topic. Because what he explained in his post, and I thought this was very, very nice. He just wasn't interested in making it a good software in terms of, you know, patterns and setup and or something like that. He created this application from a very user-centric viewpoint. So he said he wanted to make it easy, he wanted to make it fun, he wanted to kind of also give the user helpful feedback and so on and so on. And he just was not interested in inverting a binary tree on a whiteboard, because who outside of Google ever uses this, you know? Because if I actually never encountered a binary tree as of now, and I'm certain that there are 1 million libraries that do this in a much more precise way than I would ever be able to do on a whiteboard. Sure, it's nice to know. It's nice to understand the concept of it for me, and probably for him as well. But it's just not the road he wanted to take with his education. And I think that if he said, I want to be able to work at Google, then there's Glassdoor.com, there's, I don't know, many websites that explain interview topics for Google, and inverting a binary tree on a whiteboard is actually one of the most asked one at Google. He would just be able to learn it. It's a concept of moderate complexity. He would be able to learn it if he would be interested in that. So as I said before, if you want to take this career path, then I guess you make sure that you check all the boxes and focus on these topics that interest you. But if you don't want to be a programmer who's interested in using inversion of binary tree to save 3 nanoseconds on your algorithm, then this role is not for you, basically.
Back to what you just said about what Max Howell's goal was, isn't that then a missed opportunity from side of Google? Isn't user experience and application design exactly what we want and exactly what we try to sell clients?
Yes, but again, I guess the role that he applied for in this case was not one for user-centric application design. I think he wanted to try the position as a programmer, but didn't get in. And I think they just handle this application management differently. I wouldn't say that Google products are particularly bad from a user perspective. I mean, they could use some work, especially on the icon part, But I think they just structure their way of designing or building apps differently. So maybe he was just in the wrong position at this moment. That's my guess, but it's a fair question.
Jürgen, you also wanted to mention
just I mean, I have a very strong opinion on that, and it's really, I mean, Google is very successful, but this was basically a stupid situation, which I mean, I love Brew. Yeah, I have macOS at home as well, and even the command line it's great for using it and how everything runs along. And yeah, it's a user-centric thing. And maybe also pick up the question from the audience and on Reinhard, because it basically doesn't depend from where you come, because I always say hire for attitude and train for skill. This is Simon Sinek, or I don't know who said it, or was it Richard Branson? I don't know. I don't remember. But this is basically the thing, and it doesn't matter from where you come. If you have an advantage, of course, if you went through HTL and continued your way to the university and everything. So this is kind of a booster, but on the long run, some point in time, it levels out in a way. And probably if you have grit and you have the attitude, you probably even overtake the university academics, so to say, because you really are interested in the topic. And so whatever it takes, if you come from Wi-Fi, from the Wi-Fi, or from the coding school, or from wherever, if you are a grad or a HTL graduate, it doesn't matter in the end, because I would say the attitude is important. Skill can be learned and trained, and if you want, like Matthias also previously said, he's basically a self-taught guy, and he's very good at his stuff.
Mm-hmm. So is the hiring just wrong? Is the way of just testing people, algorithms, wrong, and something to be changed?
Just one sentence. I mean, in this case, I would say yes, because there are, and even sometimes in Austria, you feel like there is kind of a glass ceiling which you can't overstep if you don't have this academic degree for some kind of reason. It's just like a glass ceiling you can't penetrate anymore because there is this formal step you have to have. Yeah, even there is someone better in the position to take over this role rather than the academics next door who basically just has another formal aspect onto it, and probably the Google guys didn't care about that as much, but they had another formal glass ceiling which they said this is a must-have tick box, and basically said no to a very good technical architect and developer and whatsoever. So I have a very strong opinion to that. Put away all your certificates and everything. It's good to have them and to know, but look the person in the eye, see if the social skill is working out, if they can work in the team. Like Harald said, it's very important. You are not alone somewhere out there on a Rambo programming some stuff in the cellar, but you need to work together. And of course, then the skills come in, and you can train the skills, and you need to stay up to date. Yeah, this is my point on that.
And I also want to answer this question with a yes and no. So from the on one side, I really can agree with Jürgen here. It's perfectly said. Also, I benefited from that because I didn't have this formal checkpoints for this role I was applying for, but somehow people kind of liked me and said they give me a shot, and it was beneficial. And but on the other side, I have to say, looking through the eyes of a recruiter or a HR person, you have to have some kind of filter. You can just it's very hard to evaluate everyone on an individual level, and you can't say, okay, I can see from this CV that this person may have merit because it's a cool guy or girl. It's and you can't just interview everyone face to face. So you have to have some kind of pre-filtering. I also have a very strong opinion about inverting binary trees on a whiteboard. But on the other hand, I understand that they have to have some kind of just basic check boxes, so they can kind of just thin out the herd and be able to work with it. And in the end, I mean, the formal education does in general indicate a level of experience that you can work with, and it's kind of a very complex situation with multiple parties involved. So I would say yes. I would also like to have a process of hiring where the education doesn't matter as much, but I think it's just not as easy to say it's just wrong and let's just do it differently. Plus, I also have to add one thing. Also, sorry that I have to kind of again advertise for my company, but if you enter our company as someone coming from a HTL, at the lowest level that you can possibly enter, after this, the only thing that that people look at you is by the things you have done, by the way you kind of develop yourself, the way you grow. You can go up to CEO, I guess, or at least very high in our company without ever getting a formal degree once you're in. So in our company, that's a kind of good thing that at some point it doesn't matter anymore if you have this formal education or not, and this is kind of how you circumvent this formal education stuff.
While there is no written rule that you need to have a degree to get to some point, say a managing director or whatever, there are, not only in our company, but in many others, kind of implicit rules as to what degree you must have. Do you think that, especially in Austria, where degrees are valued deeply, that there still are glass ceilings, not only here, but also in other countries?
I definitely think so, and I think that's the only reason for that is that companies are just too afraid to try out something new because it has worked out pretty well. But times have changed, and there are a lot of talented people having a different story, but the risk of trying out a new method of hiring and assessing someone is just too high. Then the risk of hiring then someone who is not fitted to the job is just too high. So we just stick with the old-fashioned methods that worked out pretty well. But as I said, I think times have changed and people come from very, very different paths. As you, for example, Matthias, who's for sure a very, very talented programmer. And a lot of companies don't see that that's possible. I think they're just afraid.
Also, maybe to add a little to that, sorry, Matthias, just one quick sentence. In Austria, especially, the problem is right now, I think, that your title matters a lot to other people. So if you want to be in a position where you kind of represent a company, you want to be taken seriously by other people from other companies at the same level as you are, right? Because you have to network across company borders. And yeah, especially in like old Austrian companies, think, you know, big companies, it's very important that you have a magister or a doctor. But on the other hand, I also think that this kind of thinking is dying out a little bit. It's from my personal view, I don't know if it is true, but it's going away slowly, and I think this gives probably a chance for the future to kind of get rid of this hard requirements and this formal way of hiring. So sorry, Matthias.
Matthias, you wanted to add something?
Yes, I wanted to add that this approach, at least in my opinion, doesn't work for each sector. You have to look at the jobs individually, because, for example, where I work, it's a very security critical job. So you can't just hire anyone without a good vetting process and then see if they work out or not. And yeah, also the what Matthias said with the very sort of traditional Austrian companies, I don't think there's any more traditional company in a sense than a ministerium. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Mm-hmm. So if you look, for instance, at exactly ministries in Austria, where your entry salary, if you work directly at the ministry, depends on what degree you actually have, and how specific your degree is to the topic at hand, as sort of a prognosis, as we just established that those glass ceilings exist not only in Austria but also in other countries, of fear, as Bernhard said, of fear of actually putting people without a specific degree into certain positions. As a prognosis, do you think that those glass ceilings are going anywhere? With time, do people get open-minded?
May I?
Yes, of course.
I think, first of all, we should think about what is the reason for those virtual glass ceilings. Depending on a degree, when it comes to an applicant, is nothing else than outsourcing liability. If I do not have the time or the resources to check if someone is good enough, if someone is suitable for a certain position, to not do any harm, I outsource that task. And in our environment, especially in Europe, this is outsourced to institutions of formal education. There is a very clear teaching plan which indicates what someone is supposed to be able to do and what someone was able to do. And therefore I check the certificate. Supposedly someone should be fit for a certain job, and basically the outsourcing is done. And if something goes down the drain, I can say, oh, hey, he has got a master's degree, or she has got a doctor's degree or a bachelor's degree, and they're supposed to be capable of to handle certain situations. And that's the reason. And it's not just about being brave enough to hire someone who doesn't have that formal education. It's just a very practical thing. But I think the most recent years show that you cannot solely rely on formal education because things change a lot. And to basically close my statement, I would like to tell you what I tell all my students, because one of the most frequently asked questions is, should I go to university, or should I go straight to the real business out there? And then I always say, Matthias, it depends. Why does it depend? For some jobs, you need formal university education. If you want to become a doctor, if you want to become a lawyer, if you want to become a notary, if you want to become a teacher in our school, actually, you have to have a formal master's degree. That's fact. In my opinion, you do not need it to become a software engineer.
Mm-hmm. So to kind of as a last side note, to kind of circle back to what you just said regarding outsourcing. In my opinion or experience, companies tend to outsource more than they tend to bring in-house. So do you think this will change, this aspect of ensuring qualifications via degree will change if it's an established method that, while not being the most perfect way of doing things, is established to work?
I think it has got pros and cons. You gain a lot of flexibility with outsourcing. If that wasn't the case, some of you wouldn't have a job. So a lot of IT companies live off that also outsourcing strategy. You're way more flexible when it comes to scope and scale of projects. You can stuff up very quickly. You can stuff down. You do not need to worry about someone getting sick. Because it's not your responsibility to compensate. But I see a trend, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, that some of my clients start insourcing projects. Why? Because that delivers more control for the company, that delivers more control for the client. And of course, you might have a higher level of reliability when it comes to your employees. I think the connection to the company, of course, is stronger if you're directly employed at the company and not if you're just 1 out of 10 developers being outsourced to 5 different clients in 3 years. So that's a trend I see.
Maybe one sentence.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, just one sentence to add. I fully agree, because we also see in business the tendency back from let's outsource everything to offshore, nearshore somewhere, to source it back in a way not only to internalize it, but also to have local Scrum teams, for example, to have the development on site, because as Matthias also said before, the companies try to be more customer-centric and build also technology which are more cultural or customer-centric, where you sometimes need also the cultural understanding and the agile way of testing and inspect and adapt and move much quicker. And this could be done if you're more close to the actual business units who also can decide things faster if you go left or right. So this is a tendency that this is a matter of fact. This is something we see. Of course, the big outsourcing deals are still there, but this is a commodity. It's big business process outsourcing or infrastructure outsourcing whatsoever. But the real, let's say, core product, core competence or core technology product built by a company is more and more coming back to the home site and developed here with agile teams, definitely.
Mm-hmm. All right. So to sort of close topic 3, and I think we can move on if there aren't any comments left to be said. To kind of circle back to what Jürgen said before that, hire for attitude, train for skill. Can education ever beat experience? So we talked about cost of opportunity of going to a university versus using the time to actually gain experience. How does it stack up with career changes, or with people who studied something different, with people who are self-taught, who might miss out on a bit of experience, versus HTL graduates who have to do quite a lot of internships to even graduate in the first place, and have more time to gain that experience. So how does it stack up generally?
I could again give my favorite answer. It depends, because as I said before, I think I've mentioned it. I think that every path has its own merit. You know, that if you start after HTL directly and you gain a lot of experience in, let's say, one topic, maybe a niche topic, and that's what you want to do. You don't want to do anything but be a programmer day in, day out for the next 40 years. Then no one from university will come and steal your job, because 8 years of programming in one niche is you just can't catch up to that, especially if you start young, because young minds, you know, work differently. It's harder if you're older to learn new stuff and so on. So if the younger you are when you start something, that the more you can focus on that. But on the other hand, if you like to have this broader view, if you, I don't know, want to know if you want to become a manager, or I don't know, or you know, some C-level guy, and you have to know also, you have to have this feeling for influences of certain things, of business values and stuff like the stuff that Jürgen said before. Then I think it's harder even to go there without a formal experience than after experience. So in this way, I would say a degree beats experience for stepping up the ladder. But on the other hand, experience beats education if you really want to be the hands-on guy for all your life. And I also have to add to that, almost everyone that went to study computer science at the TU, for instance, they told me that studying at the TU is not a coding boot camp. So actually, people for 5 years they don't code very much. I mean, they code, but you know, sometimes no one is checking the code. It can be spaghetti code. No one cares. So after those 5 years, you're not a better programmer. You're just, you know, you have a different focus. You have a broader focus. You have a broader experience or broader knowledge base, and see things differently, and may be able to solve problems differently in a more creative manner or whatever. But when it comes to really hands-on skill, I would say nothing beats experience.
Mm-hmm. So yes, sorry.
To add to that, I would say that in the HTL, especially, you learn more of a craft, and at university, it's more sciencey in a sense. And I think also if you are a self-taught coder and basically all you've done is look at code on the internet and learn on the internet, I think you're also more of a craft person than a science person in a sense.
Mm-hmm. So to kind of give an example from first-hand experience, when I was at HTL, we had a teacher who gave us assignments and who expected us to write these assignments in feature branches and then actually create pull requests as if we were in an actual project. So it's a very hands-on, very realistic sense of teaching. Do you think that this, for instance, is an advantage, that this is actual experience that is valuable for the job later on?
If I may answer that question, I think that question is prone to misconception. Why differentiate education and experience? If education is done right, especially in a professional environment, as a professional school, then it's supposed to be very experiency. Please do not think about higher technical college as a school where the teacher stands in front of the class, talks for 2 hours. I sometimes do it, but I try to avoid it. And 30 people sit on old wooden chairs and just listen. This can be substituted by YouTube, to be honest. It's all about the environment, about guidance and mentoring. And this can only be done by serving the students real projects. So starting from the 4th year in my classes, it is mandatory to do a real project for a real client, sometimes for real money, of course, and this will be graded. And the teacher does not teach you that much, especially not things you can read about on your own. I see our job as to guide, as to mentor, as to support, because everyone can read on their own. And to the question, coding schools, I think it actually doesn't matter where you get your knowledge from, and every tool is a valid tool as long as it serves the purpose. But the teacher is not someone who is supposedly to tell you things you can read on your own. It's much more than that.
Mm-hmm. So not education over experience, but education should be experience if done right. Yes? So to tie that into Kathrin's question, right, I'll display that right here. How does that tie in? So if for instance on Udemy or Code Academy, you have very lecture heavy ways of getting to know computer science. Is it still valid that it can be done in a manner that it's still more valuable or equally valuable, at least, to experience?
I can maybe give an example here, because I've used both Udemy and Code Academy. I did a Python course on Code Academy when I was doing my master's, and I wanted to use Python for data crunching, and I used Udemy as a course for React because I needed it on the job, basically, and I had to get into it somehow. And I can only agree to what Harald said before. The source doesn't matter. If it's a book, if it's a YouTube video, or a Code Academy, you can get in the knowledge. But it's like language learning. There are four pillars of language learning: reading, talking, listening, and speaking. And it's the same for programming. You have to understand it. You have to be able to kind of read it. You have to be able to do it. And the only thing is on how to really get something out of what you read, what you saw, whatever, is then to do something with it. I was for the Python stuff, I did a lot of data crunching, like I said, for my master's thesis, and for React and Redux, I used it on the project day in and day out. It helped me to jumpstart kind of my workflow. But what I learned, where I learned the most, was from console log errors in my browser console and solving them.
Mm-hmm. Maybe one comment. I mean, I was a terrible programmer in HTL. I mean, not because our teacher was so bad, because I didn't get the concept of it, and because we started with VBA, Visual Basic for Application, because our professor said it doesn't matter, we don't need to Java 1.2 at that point in time. You can learn how a while and until loop works and how the if is working, and we hated it. Yeah, but in the end, and that's why also it didn't spark any idea what it could be good for. And where I really learned it, I mean, it's probably not the best programming language to learn it, but with Perl, we did actually a web project with a very enthusiastic teacher who was like more, like Harald said, was guiding us more in the direction. You were self-motivated to learn more, and we basically started to search in the internet and find the code snippets. Okay, put it together, and also learn from the debug messages in a way. And this was something which helped us very much, and myself, where I got into the concept of this abstract thinking, how programming works. And I think even with Udemy today, it's much better structured, and it's a great way of get into it. But you need to do it, and this really comes from experience. This is the important part.
To extend that here. As already mentioned, we have those projects in our school, and I think we have this aspect of having an idea with some company and really not having a fixed path of how to solve it, but we have to find the solution for that from ourselves. So we have to, if it's a topic we haven't covered in school, that's not a problem. Usually, it's very often that way. We just research it, and I think that's the best way of learning there is, to have some idea you wanna have a solution on, and you do some self-research and you try to solve that problem with guidance, of course, but not with a fixed path.
Mm-hmm. To kind of get our common thread back and kind of tie into the whole how does a HTL student or a career changer stack up against a CS grad? I kind of want to tie that in with an anecdote of how Japanese companies structure their teams, namely with experienced people who kind of have the view of okay, I saw that already, and very young people who kind of get in a fresh perspective, and kind of want to tie that into team composition in software teams here. Is there a perfect team? Is there a perfect team composition? Does the team composition even matter? Like, can I have the best result with a team of just self-taught programmers, or just HTL grads, or just computer science grads? Or is there a kind of a mix that I need to achieve of experience and education to get a synergy of the best efficiency?
I would like to use Matthias's favorite answer for myself this time. I think it really depends on the people in this case, because I've been in a couple of teams, and it really doesn't matter in a sense where you got or whether you got your degree. It really depends on the people and the personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say generally the diversity is key, and the diversity doesn't come from they can have all the same degrees or not. The diversity comes from who am I as a person, and how do I react into the team dynamics, and how is the team in storming, norming, performing on these levels, which every team goes through, and it takes some time, and I learned it firsthand. If you really get a high performing team, it roughly takes half a year till they get into this high performing situation mode where they really can bring the power onto the street, so to say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the diversity, as you said, diversity is key. So do you think that applies to education as well, apart from personality?
Yeah, definitely as well. But as said, it doesn't matter so much. Of course, someone who is, let's say, has not so much deep knowledge, or even if it's a university graduate but hasn't worked with this kind of language, there's always like a learn opportunity to learn from them. So it's basically the same. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. But I said it's probably the attitude of the people again. Yeah, higher for attitude, and the skills can be learned. But if the team is diverse from a different background perspective, you can bring everybody on the same page. This is definitely possible, and will work if the team really comes together in a certain setting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Then again, we can conclude with Matthias's favorite answer, it depends, and move on to our final topic, which we discussed earlier a bit. How can schools and university best teach practical skills, meaning skills that you will actually need on your job? Teamwork, testing, agile development, code quality. So for instance, in a higher technical college, you have a subject that specifically focuses on working in projects and working with projects, managing projects. You also get taught the importance of testing and code quality. As I mentioned before, there are of course, it depends on the teacher, but there are teachers that focus on a very hands-on approach to teaching software development. So in your opinion, what are the best tools to actually teach someone practical skills, to teach someone testing, agile, etc.? And of course, mind you, that a university is not a programming boot camp. It's an academic education. Nonetheless, also in academics, you do need teamwork. You do need eventually, if you do scientific work, you do eventually write some code, maybe. Then you do need code quality, or you develop certain projects, then you do need to know how agile development works. So in your opinion, what are the best tools? What is the best strategy to teach people this knowledge, this very hands-on knowledge?
I think everything starts with the right challenge. For the fact that a higher technical college is a professional education, for the IT sector, we need a challenge from the IT sector. As I already mentioned, therefore a real project. But the challenge needs to be scaled to be hard enough for the students, but not too hard that they break. We never had a problem in classes, or we rarely had problems in classes, that students did not contribute enough. It's more common that we have to tame the students down, that they don't do too much. I always feel sorry when I see them in the morning and I ask them, how many hours did you sleep? And they ask me, what is sleep? So, and I know this is not a joke to the full extent. So I think everything starts with the challenge, and gradually increasing the level you expect, maybe even artificially creating problems in the challenge, that the students can improve and can grow in a good pace. I think the balance is very important, is very crucial when we're already talking about soft skills. And I totally support Jürgen's statement when he said it's more about the attitude than the skills. And the further you advance in our education, at least in my subjects, the fewer hard skills we teach. It's more about the challenge, the environment, guidance, support. So I think that an adequate challenge is very important.
Mm-hmm. So a direct question to Matthias Höld. As you came out of university and you didn't study computer science, how did you approach things like code quality or agile development? I suppose you did have team projects in university as well, but the experience of agile and agile ceremonies is like an entirely new world, I imagine. So how did you experience that? How did you approach things like that?
Well, first of all, we didn't have group projects in that kind of sense. We had, topics that we did a seminar thesis on and had to present it as a group, but I wouldn't really count that as group work because it was, very separated. So yeah, I will try to answer each point. It's kind of difficult because the first project I was at was even not agile. It was a classic waterfall project, which was also kind of new to me because they really, they wrote this hard, this waterfall. But coming to agile, I did my PSM1, so Professional Scrum Master 1 certification during my 2 months training. And I don't know if any of you ever did a training on Scrum Master certification, but it's super flashy. The trainers themselves are from this agile world. Everything is, you have posters with people drawn on it, and everything is fun, and you do stand-ups and you jump around, and it's a kind of unique learning experience because it teaches you not only the agile way and the ceremony, but also the agile spirit. So coming from this agile spirit training to this hardcore waterfall project was one challenge in itself. But when it comes to agile, I also saw that as always in the software world, everything comes down to the details, because I failed to see one team that really practices agile the way it was meant to be or the way it was not meant to be, but described in this Scrum handbook. Everyone does we should have dailies and it should last 15 minutes, but we do it every other day, and sometimes not everyone comes. Or then you are in teams where not everyone is full-time in the team and stuff like that, So basically, to get back to your question, the challenge itself was not coming from a non-IT background into this agile background. The challenge is still ongoing because this agile world is not as agile as it's supposed to be. Let's say it like that. And when it comes to topics like code quality and testing and unit testing and all this stuff, there actually my first project taught me a lot because, like I said before, I had very, very nice colleagues. I had very qualified colleagues. A lot of them also went to HTL and had a lot of experience. And I was basically working on a very large code base where a lot of the stuff was already implemented. So I had to learn, like most of the stuff, learning by doing, to see what is SolarCube, what does it do, and what is code quality, what is what is this percentage that is always showing up when I run my unit tests. What are unit tests even? I really learned a lot just by studying the code base, basically. And since I'm personality-wise, I'm someone who really wants to understand the stuff that is right in front of him. It was just, going through the code base, trying to understand each line, which was sometimes not possible. But it was a little bit of a struggle, and in retrospect, I wish that I had this kind of formal education that teaches me, okay, there is something like code quality, there is something like a linter, and and stuff like that, and what it is. But for me, it's kind of fun because I like to learn, and that's why I am where I am right now, because I'm basically surrounded by people who like to learn, and I learn from those very talented people, and this is how I learn anything that was not taught to me in my formal education.
Mm-hmm. So if there are no additions to that, we have a question directed to Hari from Simon K. He wants to know how companies, the sources of challenges you mentioned, how these are found.
Some projects are offered to the school. Companies contact me, offer projects, offer cooperation. To find the right projects for the right teams, I invest a lot of time. Fortunately, I've got a very wide client base in my civil job, so to say. So I ask my clients, hey, would you like to have that done by a team of students? I manage the students a lot career-wise, and therefore I always need to find the right match. And we never had problems in school to find enough corporations, to find proper corporations, so to say. Fortunately, the Spengergasse is well known, and it opens a lot of doors. If you call a company and say, hey, it's Harald Spengergasse, you're working in the field of space research, want to do a diploma project, I rarely hear a no. And the better I know the companies, the better I can match the companies and the projects to the students. So we never run out of projects, so no worries here.
All right. So first of all, I want to thank you all for joining. We now have the Q&A section, but I think we have answered most of the questions. Let's leave some time if there are still questions to be asked. And if not, then I would like to hand over to Kathrin to do our Menti poll. I'd very much welcome you to participate. It is about the future of this meetup group and kind of what direction we should go into, and of course how you as participants enjoyed it. So as there are no questions, it appears I will just hand over to Kathrin.
Hi, everyone. So thank you for listening. We now have prepared a little Menti in which we ask for your feedback. And just have to pick the window. Yes. There we go. You can see the Menti code on the top. And the first one is about feedback. So please tell us how we're doing with this meetup. If you have any ideas for improvement, now is the time. Okay, that's nice. Yes, there definitely will be more. That's also what our next question then is about. Maybe I should wait a bit more or go on to the next Menti question. All right, I think we'll take it over to the next question. If you have any more feedback, I think you can contact us via our Meetup page. And then the next thing we wanted to ask you all is what topics would you like to see in future meetups? Do you have any ideas? So this could be on some architecture topics or also specific technologies. Okay, we have interest in micro frontends. A lot of interesting ideas. Some can maybe be clustered together into one topic. Maybe the best practice architecture and enforcing architecture guidelines would pair well. Okay. Ari, I think you can take it back. I don't think there's any more suggestions coming for now. I can leave the Menti open for a bit longer if anyone still wants to post something, and we can evaluate it later.
All right. Thank you, Kathrin, very much. All right, guys. Then I thank you very much for joining, for taking the time and discussing. As always, you will find the link to the YouTube recording at our channel. I'll send it around. I'll share it on LinkedIn probably. And I hope to see you in future discussions. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.